You've worked with leaders in some of the toughest moments of their careers when the stakes are high and the pressure is on. In your experience, what makes a conversation truly difficult and why do so many leaders avoid them?
I mean, it comes down to we care about the relationship and the outcome, meaning we want to preserve that relationship in some way. Not that we want to be best friends, but we want to have a good working relationship, and we care about the outcome. We're trying to get a specific outcome that's important to us in some way. And so when you want both, it's hard because if you didn't care about the relationship and you only cared about the outcome, you could just say whatever you need to say. You're like, oh, you just need to do this. It doesn't matter. Whereas, and vice versa, if you cared about the relationship, but you don't really care about the income, I mean, the outcome, then you could just compromise. You could just say, okay, we'll just do it your way. It doesn't matter to me. I just want us to work well together. There, when that disconnect happens, then there's an issue and you're trying to preserve both at the same time. And then also that fight, flight, or freeze response we all have. It all comes down to, we're feeling a threat, we're feeling we're going to be in danger. And so we're either going to be yelling or arguing or trying to end the conversation or run away or freeze up and not say anything at all. And the thing we don't realize is the other person feels the exact same way. And so they are also in that fight, flight, or freeze response. And if you can get them out of that response, then they can be rational and think about it and talk about it with you. But until that happens, they're still just reacting from a place of emotional reactivity and they're still just in defense mode. And you won't be able to get anywhere without that.
We crave connection, right? And then we reach for it in ways that we were taught or ways that we
Right.
learned how to reach for that connection. And so, whether that's positive or negative, right? So, can you talk a little bit more about the psychology behind that?
Yeah, and I describe it as it's if you want to think about a path in snow, like if you've walked through snow, like a path that everybody's walked through, it's packed down, it's easy, and it's easy to walk through. And then if you wanted to get off that trail, it takes a lot more effort, right? Especially if there's deep snow. Our brains are exactly the same way, is because we've learned a way of responding in hard situations or reacting in hard situations that we automatically default to that right away, and that comes up a lot of different ways. Whether I think conflict is bad, nobody should be raising their voices, or should always defer to the other person. I can't push back against, especially if they're in a position of authority. I'm not supposed to push back. Or if I always see I've done nothing wrong, I always see the other person as a problem. They just need to change their behavior, or change the way they're viewing things because I'm doing the right thing. Whatever that has happened, and the way we were raised, that influences, and then we always default to that. And so one example I give is, if my mom was in a refugee camp because came out of the Vietnam War, she's a refugee. And so she was there for a year or two, and it's a very dangerous environment. It's very difficult. You're in that fight, flight, or freeze response almost every day. And so now, even, now she's approaching her 60s, 70s. And so she still has that same response whenever something changes, whenever there's a new situation. She feels like there's a threat, and she feels like lots of people are not to be trusted outside of like family and friends that she's made. And it's hard for her to get to trust people because of that experience of I can't trust people. I don't know who is on my side and who's not because there's so much danger out there, rightfully so, because of her experiences, right? Likewise, if I was taught to never argue, I always have to just listen to whatever somebody in authority says. It's going to be very hard for me to then manage up and speak up against a supervisor or a manager or say something that I disagree with in a meeting, is because I was always taught don't push back, don't be rocking the boat, always just agree with what the person in authority says to you.
I've experienced a lot of distrust in the nonprofit sector, whether that's through donors trusting
Mhm.
nonprofits or internally, because as we know, there's a lot of turnover in the nonprofit sector. And specifically, I've been in roles where I'm hired and the rest of the team is hesitant to build a relationship with me because they just expect me to leave a year later. And so it's really hard to reach for that connection and reach for those relationships and get close to someone when you feel like, oh, well, everyone always leaves anyways, right? So, how do we
Yeah.
start to
Yeah.
build that trust within the nonprofit sector? So, because not being able to work together, we need each other. hurts the mission in the way that we're able to be efficient within our roles and within our teams and bridge those gaps. So, can you talk a little bit more about building trust within an organization?
Yeah, and that's such a big question because you're also asking a
Yeah.
philosophical question about society trusting the work of nonprofits. But also, I think you're right. It's we call it a closed group versus an open group. So if you have a closed group, it means that everybody comes in at the same time and stays in that group for whatever amount of time, and then they leave together. In those kind of systems, it's a lot easier to create trust and faster because nothing's changing. You're the same people. You can go through all those stages of forming, storming, norming, performing, things like that, right? When you have an open group, which means that anybody can come and go whenever they want to, it's a lot harder to create those bonds because you're right. People get tired of having to restart from scratch of learning who you are. I have to start from scratch of opening, who I am and putting being vulnerable. We have to share, and maybe I spent so much time with this person that I'm just tired. I don't want to start from scratch over and over again. So it's a lot harder, and I think that's partially how what sort of culture and norms is leadership creating within that team and within that organization as a whole. Are we creating a place where everything is clear, and so we don't have to constantly be suspicious or constantly be trying to figure things out by ourselves? Or are we making things super clear for everybody with clear rules, guidelines, communication structures, collaboration structures, letting people, the idea of inclusivity is a big one, and it's one that's I think I know the word's demonized now, but it's just about even just your not even your culture, but your learning style or your communication style. Do you like to process internally, and do you like time to think for yourself? Versus do you like to talk out loud and brainstorm out loud, and that's how you get your ideas out? If you can come into a place where everybody sees that and recognizes that and creates space for that, that's a huge way of automatically feeling, okay, I'm at home. I don't have to have my guard up. I don't have to guess how much of myself to let be aware here. Or I can just be suspicious the whole time and just be like, how much of myself do I share? I don't really know. Do I fit in with this? But the more clarity you can provide it and the more ability to create an environment where you're recognizing and acknowledging and bringing in all those different points of view and styles, that can help the process of building trust within the team and organization and with each other as well.